With the growth of Canadian basketball over the past couple of years, it's never been harder to get one of those coveted roster spots on a post-secondary team, and it's even harder to earn a scholarship. It's no longer enough just to be a very skilled basketball player, so you need to equip yourself with all the information you can find about college and university basketball in Canada to give yourself the best shot of making it to that next level. I've done my best to condense all the information you need to know about the rosters, the rules, the recruiting regulations of Canadian post-secondary basketball into one video. And this is all based on conversations with current and former coaches and players, publicly available data, and my own experience, having played at both the CCAA and U Sports level here in Canada. First, we'll start with the CCAA, the Canadian Colleges Athletic Association, which could be considered the Division II of Canadian basketball. There are 61 teams in the league, broken up into 5 conferences. The Pac West is located in British Columbia, the ACAC is located in Alberta and Saskatchewan, the OCAA is Ontario, RSEC is in Quebec, and the ACAA is made up of teams in a couple maritime provinces. Although the talent level is lower than in U Sport as a whole, there are still a lot of very talented players and high-level programs in the CCAA. Every year, CCAA teams beat U Sport teams in preseason exhibition games, and there are a lot of players in the league that are plenty good enough to play in a higher level, but choose not to for a variety of reasons. If you get a chance to play in the CCAA, then jump at it. It's a stepping stone to higher level leagues, or you can spend your entire 5 years of eligibility there and still go on to have a very good professional career. Now let's talk about Canada's highest level of post-secondary basketball, U Sports, which is seen as our Division I equivalent. There's 48 teams divided into 4 conferences. Canada West has teams in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, while the OCAA has 18 teams in one province, but split into 3 divisions. The Quebec League is called RSEC, just like in CCAA, but it only has 5 teams. And the AUS is the 4th conference, made up of teams from 5 different maritime provinces. While it's not yet on par with NCAA Division I, U Sports is becoming a viable alternative for the best homegrown Canadian talent. Many guys start their careers in U Sports before transferring to Division I, and many other guys start Division I before transferring back home to finish off their eligibility. And in recent years, U Sports teams have become even more competitive with Division I programs, picking up notable wins over teams like Cincinnati, UNLV, and Harvard. Because of the high level of basketball, competition for U Sport roster spots is fierce, and it's going to take a lot of talent, some connections, and a little bit of luck to land one of them. Now let's get to the issue of money, scholarships, which is what everyone wants to know about. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, so I'll do my best to set the record straight here. When we think of scholarships, we tend to think of the star treatment that athletes receive at the Division I level. Full tuition, housing and food paid for, and all the gear and accessories you could possibly imagine. Unfortunately, the reality in Canadian post-secondary basketball is far different. The fact of the matter is the biggest scholarship you can possibly receive in Canada is full tuition plus mandatory fees. This means that a program can only pay for your classes and any mandatory fees that are institution-wide, meaning all the fees that all students have to pay. The team cannot pay for your books, a meal card, apartment fees, or even a bus pass. For U Sports, the scholarship rules are the same across all the conferences, meaning teams in the OUA have to follow the same rules as those in Canada West. Each U Sports team has 8.4 award units to give out. In simplest terms, this means that a coach can give out 8.5 full scholarships between the 12 players on the active roster. Now, how that's spread out varies dramatically. It could be that the top 8 players get everything covered, and the rest of the guys don't get a penny. Or maybe only a couple guys are on full scholarship, and the rest of the classes are spread out between the rest of the players. The biggest thing to note with the U Sports scholarship rules is the Academic All-Canadian clause. This means that any player who achieves an academic average of 80% in the previous school year does not count towards that team's 8.4 award units. So it's extremely valuable to be a good student, as coaches can give you a scholarship without it affecting how much they have to give to the other players. Things get a little less clear at the CCAA level, where there's no league-wide restriction on scholarship. This means bigger schools could give out scholarship to every single player in the program, while smaller schools might only be able to pull enough money together to cover a couple guys' classes. But the major rule remains the same. CCAA schools can only pay for tuition and mandatory fees. If someone tells you that the program is offering them more than tuition and mandatory fees, like housing or food or a bus pass or anything like that, just know that they're lying to your face, or that program is doing something really shady under the table and you don't want to be associated with that anyways. Now, this section is more for my international players. Shout out to my guys in Portugal. But I think it's important for everyone to be aware of this. In Canadian basketball, there's a rule that there's only 3 international players allowed on the roster. In the past, teams would have recruited the full 3 players, primarily recruiting from the US and maybe sometimes overseas in Europe. But since 2024, the Canadian government has required that international students be able to prove that they can cover educational and living expenses up to $20,000 in order to get a student visa. The majority of teams now only have 1 or 2 international recruits, which means there's more opportunity now than ever before for Canadian players. In both the CCAA and U Sports, there can be 12 players on an active roster. That means, in Canada every single year, there are 1,308 roster spots available on post-secondary basketball teams. But when you consider that most guys play for their full 5 seasons of eligibility, only a fraction of those spots open up every single year. I'm not saying this to crush your dreams, but it is important to understand how difficult it is to play any level of post-secondary basketball, even in Canada. I think it is fair to say that recruiting looks a lot different than it did 10 years ago, let alone 20. Unless you're at a prep school or play for a perennial provincial powerhouse, it is unlikely that coaches are coming to you. The reality is that now, more than ever before, you have to be willing to go to coaches and make yourself stand out from the literally hundreds of other players that are also trying to get recruited. So here's what you can do to increase your odds of catching a coach's eye and earning a scholarship to play post-secondary basketball in Canada. The first should be a no-brainer, but it's something that players often overlook in the recruiting process. Are you actually good enough to play at the next level? Again, this isn't meant to be harsh, but some people do need a wake-up call of how difficult it is to play at the CCAA and U Sports level in Canada. It is simply not good enough to average 25 points per game as a 5'11" guard in 5A Saskatchewan basketball. You are going to have to bring a lot of other assets to the table. And if you're below 6 feet, like the majority of basketball players are, the job becomes even harder. I'll give you a guess as to how many players in U Sports are under 6 feet tall. The answer is less than 10. So I'd really encourage you to take stock of your abilities. And if it's not up to par, then you have some work to do before moving on to these next steps. But if you can look in the mirror and honestly say that you think you can compete and contribute at the next level, then here's what you can do next. The best way to get a hold of coaches is through their email. Basically, every coach in Canada is going to have their information available on the team website. All you gotta do is find a school you're interested in. Go to the team website, navigate to the staff page, and you'll find the head coaches and probably the assistant coaches' emails as well. But you have to go about it in a smarter way than just finding every coach's email and sending the same one to every single coach in Canada. I would recommend using these criteria in the following order to determine if a team is right for you. First, do they have a program you are interested in and can get into? Secondly, is this a program on the rise that is likely actively looking for players? Or is it a powerhouse program that typically recruits Division I players and the players from top prep teams all over the country? There's a far better chance of you getting a response from a coach from a team that is finishing at the bottom of the conference than from a team like Carleton or UVic that are competing for national championships every single year. And lastly, does this team need a player like you? If you're a 6'5" wing who shoots the ball well and is a strong defender, then you need to look for a program that has that need and has a position open for you. There's no sense emailing a coach who has 3 players in his program already in their first, second, or third year who he has already invested time, energy, and money in. You're going to be trying to prove your value over guys that coach already believes in. So you need to find a team that has a gap at your position, or has a lot of guys graduating in the next couple years and will need someone like you. Then, once you found the email of a coach who is looking for a player like you need to craft a message to stand out from the countless emails he'll receive every single day from players just like you. And coaches don't really need a reason to recruit you. They're simply just looking for one reason not to recruit you and to move on to the next guy. That means your email needs to be perfect. No spelling mistakes, a concise explanation of what you bring to the table, some accurate statistics, and, most importantly, some great film. Film is the most important part, because you can talk all day about what kind of player you are, but coaches want to see it, not hear about it. And you need to have 2 types of film at the ready. One is a highlight tape, and the second are full games. For your highlight tape, you want to start off with something eye-catching, something to pull the coach in. If they aren't interested in the first 10 seconds, they'll simply move on. So put your dunks or your contested threes or your ankle breakers at the beginning of your film. But then you need to really get into the meat and potatoes of your game. If you're a knockdown shooter, that should be very evident in your film. If you're a stand-up post player, you should be dominating down on the low block. If you think a bunch of open catch and shoot jumpers or some layups are going to impress a college coach, you're dead wrong. There are literally thousands of guys in provinces all across Canada that can do all of those things. And you need to make your video as short and concise as possible. Coaches don't want to see extra fluff. They don't need to see you in a high-five tunnel getting introduced or you celebrating a 3 or shooting free throws. Literally just put the most important stuff. If it would not impress your grandma, then do not put it in the highlight tape. Then, you also need some full game videos. I'd recommend having 2 of your best and 1 of your worst games at the ready. Coaches want to see you at your best, but they also want to see how you handle adversity and what you bring to the table when your shot isn't falling and everything isn't going perfect. Being upfront and willing to show your mistakes and your shortcomings and being open about working on them is a way to show your maturity and to help you stand out from the crowd. If you want a template for an email or a highlight tape, or you want help figuring out what teams to contact or how to do it, or literally anything else regarding the recruiting process, I'm very happy to help. You can leave a comment here on the YouTube video, or you can reach out to me through my DMs on Instagram at nextlevel_basketball. I've been through the recruiting process in almost every single way. First coming out of high school into CCAA, and then when I was making the jump from CCAA to U Sport. And I've also helped countless players land scholarships at both CCAA and U Sports schools. And if you found this information helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel and give me a follow on Instagram for more videos about everything it takes to get to the next level. From skills and strength training to mental performance and improving your basketball IQ. Thanks for watching.